Okay, go ahead and share my screen with you all. And thanks again for being here. I'm excited to learn with you today. I'm going to go ahead and drop the agenda in the chat. Oops. So you have access to the agenda. And we'll jump in. So this rekindling educator creativity through performance tasks. So when you signed up for this course or for this webinar, what was your big draw to this title, I guess, just out of curiosity? I know, Amanda, you kind of already mentioned that, right? So
Yes.
Jamie and Tammy, what was your big draw to this particular topic?
I think just learning how to, so I think I said this before you guys came in, but I'm a blended online learning coordinator for Denton, and just trying to engage teachers and students in their online courses and figuring out the best ways to do that. So,
Mhm.
and this was one of the only time frames I could attend. So
those time. Yeah, kind of, we'll jump in here. I know we're at lunch hour, so I appreciate you kind of, if you're multitasking, that's okay too.
Yeah, I'm eating lunch too, so just ignore me.
All good. How about you, Jamie? What led you to this particular topic?
I just kind of always like to pick other people's brains about new ways to engage, well, not only myself but my kids, because I mean, just with all the online learning, like PE and health class isn't as interactive as it used to be, and it's hard for me to really be as creative as I usually am in a regular setting, to engage these online kids as well as my in-person kids. So I just kind of like getting different input and ideas, and so
Yeah, nice. Well, we'll all have, like I kind of mentioned earlier, we'll all have a unique lens to share. So this will be a good group to jump into this topic. So rekindling educator creativity through performance tasks. A bit about my background, and I'm going to share also, before I forget, there's the attendance link up in the corner there. I'm also going to share this presentation with you so that you can go ahead and do your submit your attendance if that means something to you. I don't know how that's kind of working. It's different for everyone. Let's see here. And I'll share a little bit about my background as well. So you have access to the deck, and you can take attendance with the link up in the upper right-hand corner for that second slide. So I spent 13 years in Denver Public Schools. I was a fourth grade teacher to start. I switched over to second grade, really going further with literacy teaching in my practice, and worked with many English language learner students, and got to a point in my career where I was hearing a lot of different ways to approach teaching, and I just felt this sense of creativity that wasn't being fulfilled. So I switched over to teaching visual arts. And in that world, in Denver Public, there was no set curriculum. So I had a new frontier of designing curriculum and playing around with different things like project-based learning and also integrating arts into core content. And then moved into a peer observer role where kind of learned more and more about teacher evaluation, observation, and then also was able to provide coaching to some of my peers in the district, across the district, and working with some administration about how to set up strong coaching cycles that really foster foster trust. And also my hunch in my work right now is that creativity, I think, and I bet we've all have read a little bit about this, but creativity and having a creative mindset can really bring, when you think about mental health and having a lens of overcoming challenges through creativity can really help the well-being of educators, and in turn, same thing trickling down to students as well. So Jamie, I think like having you here in the group is going to be awesome, because with that health perspective, creative thinking really is an avenue or a new frontier to explore in terms of well-being and health. So currently, I'm not with Denver Public Schools anymore. I am now with Advanced Learning Partnerships, and I'm consulting and working across the country with ALP. And here are some of our values: trust, people, realizing opportunity, and of course, gratitude. So yeah, just thankful for us to be here today. And we partner with Dell and Microsoft. So one big thing before we jump into the learning together, if you are on Twitter, is anyone on Twitter? Yeah. Amanda says yes. Okay. I would encourage you for us to connect. So, let's see, probably the best way for us to do that, what we could do is I'm going to drop my Twitter name. I think it may have been on the last slide. In the chat, so that, whoops, you don't want to see that. That way, before we leave, we have a means of staying connected, because our work today will be unique in that we have these 4 different perspectives, all sharing the same interest in the topic of creativity and rekindling that passion and creativity through performance task design. So you can find more information on Twitter there. So we'll circle back to this at the end of our session too. Okay, so just to let you know, this session is recorded. If you have any questions about that, you can email me after the session as well. And since we have a small group, we probably have seen these norms before. I just really appreciate, if you're in a place where you can, have your camera turned on, awesome. If you're eating lunch and you don't want to be on camera, we all understand, no worries. But like I said, it's going to be a lot of conversation for the next 50 minutes. And so our outcomes for today, would someone want to jump in and read the first one? Just popcorn.
Unpack and analyze forms of feedback. Oh gosh, my picture's in the way. That motivates.
Thanks, Amanda. How about the next one? Anyone else? Explore and make connections to the pedagogy of play. And then
design a coaching mini session that reveals the teacher's motivating factors for creating and designing performance tasks.
Awesome, thank you. All right. Has anyone heard of the pedagogy of play? Yeah, awesome. Okay, good. Because we're going to explore that a bit further during this session. And so Amanda, it'll be good to hear your experience with it. Okay. So we'll kind of go through this pretty quickly. We had intros already, but just thinking about your day or week, what headline would you give to describe your experience? So this headlines comes from Harvard Project Zero's thinking routines, and is a good icebreaker with students. So so just thinking about your week so far, it has been a crazy kind of, at least for me, an off week with some events. But if you had to give your week a headline, what might it be? And I can jump in and share an example for mine. Mine probably would be very tired woman focusing on best practices in education, something like that. So I'll invite you to kind of on the fly think of a headline that would describe your week, if you feel comfortable.
So Mine would probably be thankful and blessed to survive near-death experiences.
Yes.
I got caught in a hailstorm last night in the car. That was pretty scary. And then I got lost in a cave because we just came off spring break a few days before that. So I'm just very happy to be alive.
Gosh, happy you're here. Yeah. Texas has had some weird weather. I mean, the South in general, it's just been.
Oh yeah, we definitely have had our fair share of bipolar weather here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Tammy, for that headline. It's a good one.
Yeah, mine would be something about a slow recovery to building to something. I don't know. We had spring break last week, and we went to Colorado. You said you were from Denver, so we flew into Denver right after that. I guess that epic snowstorm.
Yeah,
So there was lots of snow for the kids to play.
Yes. So you came after the big
Yes. So
Yeah.
we came the Tuesday after, so it was ready for us, and the airports were clear. But yeah, my kids loved the snow. The
Good.
Texas little snowstorm didn't do enough for them. Plus, we didn't have power, so.
Yeah, that was an intense one, I heard. Jamie, how about you?
I would probably say something along the lines of chaotic.
Chaos.
Yes, between coming back from spring break and having SAT stuff and then having asynchronous days, I think it's just out of the kids' routines and out of my routine, and we're just trying to get back on schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that routine, like getting thrown off the routine this week too. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's nice to kind of recalibrate.
Yeah, and I definitely understand the students' struggle of, because I love being in a routine, and the constant change is a struggle for me. So I know for them it's also a struggle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing those headlines. So we'll dive into our first big question. How might we unpack forms of feedback that motivates toward creativity? So thinking about feedback that cultivates creativity or creative thinking versus feedback that doesn't. So how do we unpack forms that do foster and motivate toward creativity? So I'm going to invite you to, throughout this session, hopefully you have a, scratch piece of paper and pen. We're going to be old school here. Or you can take your notes, of course, on your preferred digital platform. If you're a Google Docs person or a Microsoft OneNote, you can, split screen here. And we're going to start with a think, puzzle, explore. And thinking about the topic of feedback that empowers creativity. So in the Think, Puzzle, Explore, we're just going to jot down what do we think or know about the topic of creativity and feedback? What questions or puzzles do we have about feedback empowering creativity? And what does the topic make you think, make you want to explore? So we'll just take about a minute to jot down our Think, Puzzle, Explore thoughts here. Get my own setup here, and I'm a paper pencil type of note taker. Anyone else in that world? Something about handwriting.
Yeah, I definitely love to have everything written out on paper.
Yeah. There is some research about writing, actual handwriting versus typing. And memory out there. I'm currently taking a writing class, and my teacher she just mentioned that. But of course, do what you feel works for you. Okay. Has everyone had a chance to jot down their thoughts before we jump in? Yep. Okay. All right. So we're going to, and maybe what we can do is just share down or share out one of the pieces from our journal, Think Puzzle Explorer. So I'll go ahead and start here. So one thing that I was jotted down was one thing as I'm learning about creativity in performance tasks and feedback would be empowering feedback and really invites questions. And that's okay. Yeah, everyone, Tammy, no worries. If you have to kind of jump in and out, no problem. One thing that I am wondering about, or a puzzle that question or puzzle I have, is how can I empower my colleagues to ignite a team full of question askers? And what would I like to explore with you all today? I think I'm curious about again, like the creativity and well-being of educators and students. So who else could jump in there and share their Think Puzzle Explorer? And if you just want to share one of those pieces, that's great.
Well, creativity is kind of like a funny thing because some people think you either have it or you don't, and some people think it's a skill. And I've kind of noticed, like when you're in a creative zone, how you get this flow. So how could you encourage that flow or inspire it? Because like in the classroom, I remember like coding is very creative. And so I like to use creativity as much as possible. But when it comes to feedback, sometimes that can be an aspect where it shuts you down instead of encourages you, or there's like a fear that I think students and even adults have, that if I'm putting myself out there and then feedback could be critical to where it shuts you down instead of it gets you in that creative flow. So the other thing I considered was like how would you have the right kind of feedback to and inspire the kind of creativity you want. And then also like the different motivational types, where some students or teachers could be, they're competitive and they like that edge, where some are turned off by competition. So the different motivation types when it comes to feedback. And then finally, like tying in to your passion, because if you're working on something that you're passionate about and you like, it's kind of easier to be creative. But sometimes when we get to school, as much as we want choice and voice for students, at the end of the day there's certain things they have to learn and they may not really like it. So how do we find the passion in something that you kind of have to do? I know in the perfect world we'll say they want to do it and they could choose or whatever, but do you see what I'm saying? Like just finding the passion that inspires the creativity when you don't really want to be passionate or creative at the time.
Yeah, yes, I absolutely understand. Almost like those negotiables and non-negotiables. Yeah. When's the right time to jump in and kind of direct teach versus when's the right time to kind of go on those tangential journeys that creativity like calls for. Yeah, awesome. I can totally relate to that. Jamie, did you?
Yeah, I think when I was listening to her speak, she definitely kind of was on the same points that I was wondering or thinking about as motivation and kind of the passion to try different things, and how do you give feedback without turning off that motivation or lose them in that feedback.
Yeah. Keep the guardrails up, but every now and again get them out of the way. What's the balance there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then I don't know, Tammy, I don't know if you've caught that. If you're, I think she may be on her call. I'm not sure. Were you on your call?
I during the conversation I think I came back too late to contribute much.
Okay, that's okay. No worries at all.
Sorry.
No problem at all. Hi Lynn, it's good to see you again.
I have a small problem I had to fix before I could get in, and it's like,
Oh,
could
well,
you link the slides with it to me?
yeah, yes. Let me drop them in the chat for you. And I'm going to go ahead and jump in with, here is the agenda, Lynn. I'm going to put that in the chat again. And then here is the slide deck that we're going from. And I believe once you have that slide deck, I know we talked about the attendance link. It's in I think it's the second slide. Okay, so for our next portion of our time together, we're going to move through a See, Think, Wonder. And whoops, it'd help if I actually shared my screen. There we go. All right. Okay, can you see that okay? Okay, so if what I thought we could do is we can, there's a Padlet link in the bottom right-hand corner of this slide. And what I'd like us to do is complete a See, Think, Wonder. So simply, what do we see, what do we think, and what do we wonder? And David Kelly is the founder of IDEO. Is anyone familiar with IDEO? They're a design.
No, I'm not.
Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just saying I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. So IDEO is they're a design firm, and David Kelly was originally, I believe he was an engineer, and he got to the point where he started realizing that, well, I'll just play the video and you'll kind of hear a little bit of context of his world and how it could translate to our work as educators designing creative performance tasks alongside our peers, our teacher colleagues. So if you have an extra device like a cell phone, you can simply just scan that code on the slide, and it'll take you right toward our See, Think, Wonder note taking. If you prefer to just jot down your notes like we just did for our Think Puzzle, I'm blanking, for our last section, you can as well. Your choice.
I wanted to talk to you today about creative confidence. I'm going to start way back in the 3rd grade at Oakdale School in Barberton, Ohio. I remember one day my best friend Brian was working on a project. He was making a horse out of the clay that our teacher kept under the sink. And at one point, one of the girls that was sitting at his table, seeing what he was doing, leaned over and said to him, "That's terrible. That doesn't look anything like a horse." Right? And Brian's shoulders sank, and he wadded up the clay horse and he threw it back in the bin. I kind of never saw Brian do a project like that ever again. And I wonder how often that happens, you know? It seems like when I tell that story of Brian to my class, you see, a lot of them want to come up after class and tell me about their similar experience, how a teacher shut them down or how a student was particularly cruel to them. And they some kind of opt out of thinking of themselves as creative at that point, right? And I see that opting out that happens in childhood, and it moves in and becomes more ingrained even by the time you get to adult life. So we see a lot of this. You know, when we have a workshop or we have clients in to work with us side by side, eventually get to the point in the process that's kind of fuzzy or unconventional. And eventually these big shot executives whip out their BlackBerries and they say they have to make really important phone calls and they head for the exits. And they're just so uncomfortable. When we track them down and ask them what's going on, they say something like, "I'm just not the creative type." But we know that's not true. If they stick with the process, if they stick with it, they end up doing amazing things. And they surprise themselves just how innovative they and their teams really are. So I've been looking at this kind of fear of judgment that we have, that you don't do things, you're afraid you're going to be judged. If you don't, say the right creative thing, you're going to be judged. And I had a major breakthrough when I met the psychologist, Albert Bandura. I don't know if you know Albert Bandura, but if you go to Wikipedia, it says that he's the 4th most important psychologist in history, like Freud, Skinner, somebody in Bandura. Bandura is 86 and he still works at Stanford. He's just a lovely guy. And so I went to see him because he's just worked on phobias for a long time, which I'm very interested in. He had developed this way, this kind of methodology that ended up curing people in a very short amount of time. Like in 4 hours, he had a huge cure rate of people who had phobias. And we talked about snakes. I don't know why we talked about snakes. We talked about snakes and fear of snakes as a phobia.
I got these. They sounded kind of gross, so it made me want to.
That he'd invite the test subject in, and he'd say, there's a snake in the next room, and we're going to go in there. And to which he reported that most of them replied, hell no, I'm not going in there. Certainly if there's a snake in there. But Bandura has a kind of a step-by-step process that was super successful. So he'd take people to this like 2-way mirror looking into the room where the snake was. And he'd get them comfortable with that. And then through a series of steps, he'd move them and they'd be standing in the doorway with the door open and they'd be looking in there and he'd get them comfortable with that. And then many more steps later, kind of baby steps, they'd be in the room, they'd have like a leather glove, like a welder's glove on, and they'd eventually touch the snake. And when they touched the snake, everything was fine. They were cured. In fact, everything was better than fine. These people who had lifelong fears of snakes were saying things like, look how beautiful that snake is. And they were holding it in their laps, right? Bandura calls this process guided mastery. I love that term, guided mastery, right? And something else happened. These people who went through the process and touched the snake ended up having less anxiety about other things in their lives, right? They tried harder, they persevered longer, and they were more resilient in the face of failure, right? They just gained a new confidence. And Bandura calls that confidence self-efficacy, right? The sense that you can change the world and that you can attain what you set out to do. Well, meeting Bandura was really cathartic for me because I realized that this, famous scientist had documented and scientifically validated something that we've seen happen over, for the last 30 years, that we could take people who had the fear that they weren't creative and we could take them through a series of steps, kind of like a series of small successes, and they turned kind of fear into familiarity. And they surprised themselves. The transformation is amazing. We see at the D School now all the time, people from all different kinds of disciplines, they think of themselves as only analytical. And they come in and they go through our process, they build confidence, and now they think of themselves differently. And they're totally emotionally excited about the fact that they walk around thinking of themselves as a creative person. Right? So I thought one of the things I do today is take you through, and show you what this journey looks like. To me, that journey looks like Doug Dietz. Doug Dietz is a technical person. He designs medical imaging equipment, large medical imaging equipment. He's worked for GE and he's had a fantastic career, but at one point he had a moment of crisis. He was in the hospital looking at one of his MRI machines in use when he saw a young family and his little girl. And that little girl was crying and was terrified. And Doug was really disappointed to learn that nearly 80% of the pediatric patients in this hospital had to be sedated in order to deal with this MRI machine, right? And this was really disappointing to Doug because before this time, he was proud of what he did. He was saving lives with this machine, but it really hurt him to see the fear that this machine caused in kids. About that time, he was at the D School at Stanford taking classes, He was learning about our process, about design thinking, about empathy, about iterative prototyping. And he would take this new knowledge and do something quite extraordinary. He would redesign the entire experience of being scanned. And this is what he came up with. He turned it into an adventure for the kids. He painted the walls and he painted the machine, and he got the operators retrained by people who know kids, like, children's museum people. And now, so when the kid comes, it's an experience. And they talk to him about the noise and the movement of the ship. And when they come, they say, okay, you're going to go into the pirate ship, but be very still because we don't want the pirates to find you. Right? And the results were super dramatic. Right? So from something like 80% of the kids needing to be sedated to something like 10% of the kids needing to be sedated. And the hospital and GE were happy too, because you didn't have to call the anesthesiologist all the time, they could put more kids through the machine in a day. So the quantitative results were great. But Doug's results that he cared about were much more qualitative. He was with one of the mothers waiting for her child to come out of the scan. And when the little girl came out of her scan, she ran up to her mother and said, "Mommy, can we come back tomorrow?" Right? And so I've heard Doug tell the story many times of his personal transformation and the breakthrough design that happened from it. But I've never really seen him tell the story of the little girl without a tear in his eye. Doug's story takes place in a hospital. I know a thing or two about hospitals. A few years ago, I felt a lump on the side of my neck. And it was my turn in the MRI machine. It was cancer. It was the bad kind. I was told I had like a 40% chance of survival. So while you're sitting around with the other patients in your pajamas and everybody's pale and thin, and you're waiting for your turn to get the gamma rays, you think of a lot of things. Mostly you think about, am I going to survive? And I thought a lot about, what was my daughter's life going to be like without me? But think about other things. I thought a lot about, what was I put on earth to do? What was my calling? What should I do? Right? And I was lucky because I had lots of options. We'd been working in health and wellness and K through 12 and the developing world. And so there were lots of projects that I could work on. But I decided, and I committed to at this point, that the thing I most wanted to do was to help as many people as possible regain the creative confidence they lost along their way. And if I was going to survive, that's what I wanted to do. I survived, just so you know. I really believe that when people gain this confidence, and we see it all the time at the D School and at IDEO, that they actually start working on the things that are really important in their lives. We see people quit what they're doing and go in new directions. We see them come up with more interesting and more ideas so that they can choose from better ideas. And they just make better decisions. So I know at TED you're supposed to have a change the world kind of thing, isn't that? Everybody has a change the world thing. If there is one for me, this is it, to help this happen. So I hope you'll join me on my quest. You as kind of thought leaders, it would be really great if you didn't let people divide the world into the creatives and the non-creatives like it's some God-given thing. And to have people realize that they're naturally creative, and that those natural people should let their ideas fly. That they should achieve what Bandura calls self-efficacy, that you can do what you set out to do, and that you can reach a place of creative confidence and touch the snake. Thank you.
Okay. So already that makes me think about, Amanda, what you had mentioned right out of the gate with thinking about how many times people think that they're not creative when really self-efficacy and creativity kind of go hand in hand, according to David Kelly's argument. So David Kelly wrote a book called Creative Confidence too. I know I just ordered it after getting really into this design project or thinking about this professional learning. And I don't know, it may be a good one to check out. So research indicates that in order for feedback to be most effective, it needs to be, how many of you have seen this before? The research on feedback. Yeah, some of us, Lynn. Yep, Amanda. So this isn't new. It's, we know specific and just being human, right? And receiving feedback. Feedback needs to be specific and actionable, timely, goal-referenced, regular and ongoing, task-focused, self-referenced with identified next steps, not norm-referenced, as in comparing me to you or, student A to student B, and process-focused. So when we think, the reason I'm starting out with feedback as opposed to performance task design is because if we can create or design a performance task that already keeps in mind the types of feedback that encourage creativity in students, teachers will be able to see the benefits of creative feedback. All right, so let's keep going here. So we already went through 2 examples of feedback protocols for creativity from Harvard Project Zero. Our Think, Puzzle, Explore was one of them, as well as the See, Think, Wonder that we just did on the Padlet. And thanks for sharing your thoughts on the Padlet. There are tons more thinking routines for feedback toward creativity on those 2 sites. And then I also shared the link to IDEO, which is Tom Kelly's, his business for design thinking for educators. And there's a plethora of resources when you're thinking about coaching dynamics or sitting down with a team to do group coaching. So we may not have time to dive in fully to those resources, but they're there for you as well. Okay, so our big question comes to, how might we explore and make connections to the pedagogy of play? So just like our students, our teachers, and our peers, our colleagues, we need some form of play in order to feel comfortable creating. Because I think when you think about what's preventing creativity in others, it's this fear of doing something wrong. And when we think of play is that that improv, taking the step to just be in that moment. So how and why is play conducive to creative action? So our topic here, play trumpets the body and mind to heed its call to action. And that comes from the National Institute for Play. And again, that's linked. So even after this session, if you want to go further with these resources, it's right there for you. So Ben Mardell, he's the principal investigator with Project Zero for the pedagogy of play. And I have a video here that's linked up to his words. It's real short, so I'm going to go ahead and play that for us. And I just want to hear what you have to think with his words. There we go. It's a short one.
So what have we learned in the last 2.5 years? The educators, teacher researchers at ISB and the Project Zero researchers working together. A lot of things, actually, but let me name 3. The first is that we've defined what learning through play in school context, specifically at ISB, look like. So we have identified that when 3 feelings are activated for learners, a feeling of choice or agency, a feeling of curiosity, wonder, and of delight, of enjoyment of the learning process, there's a good chance that learning through play is happening. And that's, I think, very useful for educators to have, because we can say, let's learn through play, but what exactly are we talking about? Now, of course, that was figured out at ISB here in Denmark. And while we know that play is universal, it's also a cultural phenomenon. So we can't just say that what we found out in Denmark is going to be applicable all over the world. And that's one of the reasons why we're starting to work in South Africa, to understand in that context what learning through play can look like. So that's one thing, defining what learning through play in school looks like. A second thing is that we've learned that to help navigate the paradoxes between play and school, for educators to be able to bring learning through play into their practice, having colleagues to talk about, having study groups where teachers sit down together, look at documentation of their practice, and have collaborative conversations about how to improve those practice is a really important vehicle to help teachers navigate those paradoxes, bring more learning through play in. A third thing is that have put together some 8 guiding principles for pedagogy of play that we think that can be useful for educators around the world. And a key principle that we've identified is that you need to foster trust and welcome negotiation at all levels, between teachers and their pupils, between teachers and the administrators, between the families and the school. That trust is a fundamental part to bringing learning through play into the classrooms. But we need to trust the kids that they're going to make good decisions. Of course, we can help them and set up those conditions, but we need to believe that they're going to choose what is best for their learning, because they do want to learn. They want to learn to read. They want to learn how to do math. They're naturally curious. And we need to trust teachers to make the right decisions, again, with support. So 3 things that we've learned so far.
Okay. What resonates with you from Dr. Mardell's findings in the pedagogy of play?
So it's funny because it reminds me, we do a lot with blended learning, obviously, and 2 of the, I guess, theories behind I have my food coma going. We have, what am I trying to say?
The 2 theories connected to blended learning.
Jobs. So there are jobs to be done through learning and going to school, and what are those jobs that students are looking for? And the 2 things we look for, are they having fun with friends, and are they successful? And it sounded so funny when I first heard that, because like, fun with friends, you don't go to school to have fun with friends. but really that's what keeps them coming back over and over and over again. Yeah. And then those small successes. So you think about gaming. We were talking about gaming earlier, and why is it so addictive? Why do they keep coming back? Well, they're having fun with friends, and they're making progress, and they're successful because they continue to level up. And it's and so we're looking to duplicate that in the virtual classroom or blended classroom or whatever, face-to-face, whatever. Making sure they're having fun, and they're socializing, and they're successful, because they're not gonna, if they keep failing, they're not gonna want to come back. So those small gains and progress are really important.
Very cool. That's interesting. I love that. Yeah, that direct connection. Fun with friends. It's like, yeah, like we were laughing about this, like, because I don't know about what your school experience was, but I know I got in trouble for talking like all the time. So, but when you think about it, as a child, those relationships that you're building at school give you purpose in taking action to take care of your friends, right? So amplify that into the world. That's awesome. Love that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we're trying to be really, create those moments intentionally, so that when they walk away, they want to keep coming back for more.
I like that.
It paralleled a lot of what he was saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
I make sure my kids, I don't do assigned seating them, because I want them to get that desire to come back. But what struck me about this video is that play in Denmark does not look like play in Africa. It does not look like play from one city to another. The kids have different things they want to consider play. So we have to be aware of that. And that one struck me the most.
Yeah, that is interesting. And I know your background, you have lived all over the world then, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that is something, especially when we think about designing our performance tasks, we can't really design something that's going to work if we don't know the culture of our students and where they're coming from. So I think you bring up a really good point.
I had to, in order to teach here in Beaumont, I started talking to the parents and seeing what do they allow the kids? How do they talk to the kids? And I learned all kinds of little body motions just watching them where the parents quietly tell the kid how to behave. And it was pretty universal over some neighborhoods. And I say neighborhoods because it's different parts of town. So I would try different things and it was amazing. My discipline issues dropped.
Mhm.
So what it looks like, he said, what the play looks like, that's the big difference.
Mhm.
Because you've got to see what does it actually look like. And in order to teach other teachers this, I have to show them what it looks like.
Yeah. The other thing you're making me think of also is that I think everyone here, I'm pretty sure everyone here works with teachers in some kind of a coaching or professional learning capacity. Is that right? Yeah, Amanda, Jamie, you as well, right? I think Jamie's still with us. If not,
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to switch over to my computer.
oh, it's okay. No worries. You have the dual role of where you work with students and you work with teacher colleagues, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, oh, Jamie, I see you there. I'm not paying attention. I'm
Oh
gonna
no, you're good.
end
You're
you
good.
in there. Sorry about that. Whoops. Okay. Yeah. And so what Lynn was
Sorry.
that's okay. Yeah, I think you got it, Jamie. Always when you have two devices that echo, can go off. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So yes, just thinking about the range of how comfortable, first of all, when you're working with students or you're working with teachers, what they are in the position of creating a culture. And so what my classroom looks like may be different than what Jamie's classroom looks like. And is that okay? We don't, that's kind of up to the educator, right? And so it's really strong performance tasks tap into the audience we're designing for. So depending on whether we're designing a task or an environment for, students in South Africa or students in Denmark, our actual work, there's not a uniform way to design that performance task. We have to know our audience. So this is one piece that the Harvard Project Zero Pedagogy of Play project, they call out the paradox between play and school. And it also makes me go back to thinking about what Amanda mentioned about when is the time to be really direct with instruction versus empowering students to go off on those creative tangents. And we know that school is timetabled. We know there are places of order. We of course want to keep kids safe, and there's usually an agenda in order, typically set by the adults and not necessarily welcomed, having students welcomed into that agenda setting. Although there are some teachers I have seen that do that, which is wonderful. And we know play is pretty much the opposite, right? It's timeless. It can be chaotic and messy, involves risks. So how do we design performance tasks that balance these two paradoxes? Okay, and you all can see this okay still, right? Thumbs up. Okay, so here's another journaling activity I'm going to invite us to do. I know we're getting closer to the hour, so we're kind of going to go in a higher gear here. But what are 1 to 2 activities that you're curious about that our IDEO partner, Brendan Boyle, has shared? So in the link, if you have the slide deck pulled up, if you don't, it's in the chat. You can access this slide deck in the chat. You can link to this article is going to bring you to an IDEO partner. So I keep mentioning IDEO, Tom Kelly's company of design thinkers. Brendan Boyle shares different activities that can help educators in tapping into their creativity. So I just want you to jot down 1 to 2 activities you're curious about to learn more from this article. And how might you use these activities with your particular context? Because we all have different positions and roles here. And we're going to share out our 1 to 2 activities. The bonus question, if you want to go further, you have a little extra time. How might these activities be used in the design of a performance task themselves? So is everyone able to access this, this article? Okay. Yep. Amanda, thumbs up. Yep, Tammy, cool.
Is there any way, I know, because I switched from my phone to my computer, is there any way you can repost the link to this and the attendance?
Of course.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Here's the link to that article. Oops. Oh, okay. Yeah. So and then Jamie, the attendance link. Whoops. Now I'm playing tab roulette here. This always throws me off a bit. The attendance link is in the slide deck. So I'm going to drop the slide deck link in the chat. And for some reason, are you getting that okay, Jamie?
No, I haven't gotten anything in the chat yet.
Yeah, that's strange. Okay, so there's the link to the article. Can you see that okay?
Yes, yeah, I can see that.
Awesome. Here is, and hopefully while I'm helping Jamie with this, everyone can jump to that Brendan Boyle article, okay. There's the slide deck, Jamie, and then the attendance link is on the second slide, and you can copy and paste that link.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And then just give me a thumbs up if you've had enough time and you have some 1 to 2 activities you think could work in your specific context. Okay. So. Awesome. So I see a couple responses in the chat. Paper airplane, super fun. And Amanda, I like the assumptions envelope. Yeah. And role play. Role play always, I don't know if anyone else that naturally comes to them, but I know I get in role play mode quite a bit. Awesome.
I really like the walk the aisles. I could see a lot of times when we're switching
Bye, Amanda.
teachers into a new environment,
Mm-hmm.
they don't really know what they're trying to accomplish or what to expect. And so I would love to take them into classrooms and just saying, okay, what do you see? What do you see that's working? And have those conversations with students and teachers and observing, and that could be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, what are you thinking for your context, out of curiosity? Did any of those kind of get your thinking going?
Yeah, I really like the assumption one, just because some kids in like health and PE, when you ask them a question, no one wants to be wrong or nobody wants to be the first one to speak or whatever. But I like getting everyone's ideas and opinions about a certain subject and then kind of growing off that. So if they can all put their ideas, put their assumptions about a topic or whatever in a pile, and I can go out and read some of those. No one's embarrassed that it was them, it was wrong, or it's a myth type thing. But they're still getting to input something.
Yeah, that also makes me think, I know Amanda had to jump off, but remember her question in the very beginning about when is it that we can be direct with instruction, and when can we kind of allow time to go away and those tangential creative conversations to fly. And you're thinking, what you're sharing right there is like almost looking at it as, if you're creating that safe space where it's okay for someone to provide direct feedback, you know, it's like the creative economy in a way where if, you know, for every amount of time that you allow your students to lead the conversation or ask questions, you have the rapport with them as a strong listener to provide that direct instruction. And your comment just really made me think about that. So I know we only have, it's 2:00 now, so I'm gonna kind of jump to the end. I'm always sad that there's so much to talk about and not much time. So I'm going to just leave you with this, but how might we design coaching sessions, because or even lessons with, if we're working directly with students in our own context, that reveal either our teacher or students' motivating factors for creating and designing performance tasks. So let's just keep that in mind as we go through our day. This was one example that I had to walk through my own practice of how do I create something new? And so through designing even this session, I was using a lot of those Harvard Project Zero thinking routines. And I thought, how can I take this fun conversation routine and create a new one? And a lot of times in creativity, you're just synthesizing one idea and another to make something new. So just creativity simply is just the synthesis. So if we can empower teachers to take on this frame of mind that we're not necessarily blocked every single time, we have to kind of be observant in what we see around that's working and create something new from it. So 1-2-1-2 toolkit. This was just, so again, I'm going to leave you with this little task, but think about a coachee or a student you'll be working with this week or next. Just like finding your dancing rhythm with your dancing partner, you want to first keep steps simple. You don't want to try a bunch of steps all at once. So that's why this is called 1-2, 1-2, as if you were in a dance with someone. So select 1-2 educational tools and 1-2 alternative forms of assessment, and ask your dancing partner / the teacher that you're working with or the student that you're working with, how might they integrate these moves? So I'll leave you with this task for you to kind of play around with a new design of a performance task. And then you have all the links in this in the slide deck as well. If you want to stay on, I have time after this session too, if you just want to talk through this challenge that I'm leaving you with. Here's also the connect link, the direct link to IDEO for tools for change. So again, going back to Lynn's comment about thinking about the cultural relevance of and knowing our students' backgrounds in order to design performance tasks that truly invite and spark creativity in all kids. They have amazing tools and resources. And then the last one, in particular, there is a memorable learning experience worksheet, which is, I highly recommend looking at this a bit further. A simple activity that a teacher could do with their students to understand how they're designing for their audience. And with that, oops. I wish, like I said, I wish we had more time to jump into designing together, but I think for this session, whoopsie, we are limited with our time. And I'm gonna go back to sharing screen. Thanks for your patience. Here we go. Lost it there. And here, I threw in my 2 cents here, but I appreciate hearing all sorts of different ideas. So there's just some additional things to consider when thinking about creativity and designing performance tasks with purpose. The UN sustainability goals are really wonderful if you're working alongside a teacher, thinking about the larger rationale of designing a performance task with them. And we'll close out with one next step. There's probably multiple next steps, and you're definitely welcome to take that challenge. So just thinking about this session, what's one next step to rekindle educator creativity that you gathered or you hope to take? And maybe share your hunch of why this will help to create an authentic and fun performance task.
I'm
We have
going
to
to
do it
find
pretty briefly, so, because I know it's past 2.
some short confidence building tasks to help them realize that they're capable of doing this. Incorporate that into my introduction of a topic.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, I think like creating a safe space for them to be creative, and kind of finding that balance of when you do give them feedback, is it helping them be more creative, or is it discouraging them to step back and kind of think, well, should I do this? So kind of finding that balance of where do I encourage, where do I not speak and let the creativity kind of run with it, and kind of looking at myself as trying to find that balance of when I speak, when I don't speak
Yeah.
with them.
So practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tammy probably stepped away for a sec. So I'm going to go on to our last bit here. There is, if you have feedback for me on this session, there's a survey link that I would love for you to share your thoughts with me on that in our team, our ALP team. And again, the attendance link is here at the end in the slide deck for you to access. Yeah, so just thank you so much for being here. It was really nice to meet you all. And I would encourage you, if you do have, I would love to stay in touch with you and continue this conversation if you're up for it. So there at the bottom of my picture, there is my Twitter name. So please reach out via Twitter. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So I hope you can continue these conversations together. And please also, if anyone would like to get one another's email or anything like that, just let me know and I can send out a group email as well. But I appreciate y'all being here.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Good. Yeah.
It's different having a like professional development from someone who isn't in our district.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to see other districts, other people from other districts and their input, because obviously all districts aren't, every school is different. All the kids are different. The way you do things are different. So it's kind of nice to hear different perspectives and kind of how they do things.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm with you on that. And just see the uniqueness, like different districts are bringing different qualities and we can learn from each other.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
That's
Thanks.
benefited me a lot since I just started in this role.
What's that, Lynn? Say that again.
I forgot to move the headphone back earlier.
Like, why do you sound so quiet? All good.
Since I just started this job in January, I'm still trying to work with my kids, but I'm playing with some of the things I'm learning so that when I can go out and work with the teachers, or I'm doing a training, or they ask me questions, now I have an idea that more things to do. So I've been using my kids as guinea pigs.
Oh,
So I'm
no.
gonna.
Yeah.
Ninth graders are especially challenging, and they've been giving her a hard time. So I'm using them to keep them busy for her, my sub, and to they come up with the most unique ways to get around stuff and to get out of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they help me troubleshoot beautifully.
So they're getting creative with avoiding the work. So they have
So-
to, yeah, we have to loop them in somehow, huh?
But I'm baiting them
Yeah.
because I'm doing different stuff. So they have to go try it just to tell me why it's not working.
Oh, interesting. What do they want to work on? Do you know?
That's my Principles of Information Technology class. I'm supposed to be touching on a wide variety of things. And it's just touching on them. And so by doing my experiments, they're touching on all this stuff just to tell me how come it's not working. I'm also, sometimes I make them write their own tests because they have to write the answers,
Interesting. Cool. That is a new approach, writing their own tests, or even, like kind of circling back to what do you want to get out of this class? Yeah.
But if I ask them that, they're going to say a nap.
A nap. Yeah, well, that's how I
Okay.
felt at the beginning of the session. That's what
Jamie, it was good to meet you.
Bye, Jamie. Thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
I only got in on part of this, but it was awesome.
Yay.
And I came away with a bunch of stuff. So I will go through the slides here, but I've got another Zoom coming up in like
Yeah, couple
15 minutes. So I got to hurry.
Yeah, I'll let you go. Yeah, I appreciate seeing you again. It's so nice to connect. This is
Yeah,
like
I'm starting to feel like we're friends.
buds. We are friends. This topic in particular, I feel like is becoming one of my favorites in education, is like that creativity, and especially the pedagogy of play project that from Harvard Project Zero is like, there's something there that I feel like,
It ties in with my pet project. I like project-based learning.
yeah,
And I've been experimenting with it all the time I've been teaching because I was told it was something good a long time ago. So I've been playing with it and coming up with more ways to bait the kids, mentor the kids, and keep them on task. Because I failed a lot, because
well,
we're all learning, and that's what I tell them. Okay, you just taught me a new lesson. Let's
yeah.
try this.
Yeah. And maybe that's a whole nother segue eventually to another conversation too, of like, there was so in Denver, I would partner with the Center for Visual Arts, and they had,
Mhm.
for their teens, they had a whole program called Failure Lab. And the purpose of it was like to overcome. Thanks, Tammy. It was so nice meeting you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, feel free to stay connected too if you want to share. If you feel comfortable sharing your email, you can send it my way.
Awesome. I think I've added you on Twitter. So
Perfect. Awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Have a good one.
you. Bye. But yeah, Lynn, it was like, it's interesting because they're like, it's like this culture of celebrating the flaws or the failures, because there
Mhm.
is this connotation of like, I'm so embarrassed, like I'm going to shut down. And after so many moments of that, you lose your creativity, right? So I think
I
it's
s-
awesome.
I
Yeah.
start off teaching by saying, you're not geniuses, you're not smart. And they look at me like, I've been told I'm a genius and I'm smart. I said, no, you're good problem solvers. If I tell you a genius and you're smart, you're going to know it like that. And if you're in here, you don't know it like that, you're learning. So
Ah,
we're problem solvers. And
yeah.
so when they start saying, I'm a good problem solver. So it works.
I like that. Yeah.
That's the early childhood background coming in to play on top of the technology.
Yeah.
It's a good meld.
You're a great problem solver. Yeah. I like that. That makes sense to me.
So that helps some of these super geniuses be able to handle the fact they don't just know it and it's not coming to them just like that.
Right. Remember, you had to work hard. You had to fail hard.
Mm-hmm. And
Makes
I fail and I don't know why I'm stuck on that word. I've failed a lot and fairly hard. So that's
sense.
how I get good.
No, that's awesome.
All right.
All
I'll
right.
see you later. Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am.
Yep. See you later. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.